Hello, my name is Sam Harkness and I've been invited by Paige Tugby to take part in this initiative. I've been invited to share my experience of getting into law from a non-traditional background, and I've been invited to offer any advice and encouragement that I can to people from similar backgrounds who are also looking to break through into the profession. By way of a brief introduction to myself, before I start talking in any depth, I grew up in Somerset and went to a state comprehensive school in Somerset. I am the first person in my direct family to go to university, and I went to a Russell Group University through the assistance of the Sutton Trust. I am a 2-1 Law with French and French Law graduate from the University of Nottingham, which is where I know Paige from. And since the summer 2019, when I graduated, I have worked as a paralegal in the commercial and private client litigation team of a national law firm whose head office is based in Taunton, which is where I work and where I live. Now, as I said, I grew up in Somerset. I grew up in a small town called Burnham-on-Sea. For those of you who haven't had the joy of experiencing Burnham, it's a very small seaside town in Somerset, approximately 30,000 people. There were three high street solicitors in Burnham-on-Sea and its immediate surrounding area. I found, unfortunately, when I was growing up at the time that I was looking for experience, that it was more of a case as to who you knew within the firms, whether you would get some form of experience with the firm, as opposed to applying and dropping a CV through the door. In some respects, that was disheartening, but it meant that my legal experience prior to university consisted of the bar mock trial, which I thoroughly enjoyed, the experience of advocacy, and it meant that I benefited from travelling to court in order to watch cases as they were unfolding. I spent a fair bit of time travelling to Taunton Crown Court and to North Somerset Magistrates Court, and it was quite interesting to see when I was there the number of rural issues that were coming up as cases as well as suburban issues. I suppose a benefit of living in this part of the world, but there we go. As I said, I am the first person in my direct family to go to university. My school, when I was going there, a comprehensive school, before I went to the sixth form side of it, historically hadn't had a particularly fantastic track record of getting people into Russell Group universities. I was lucky to be part of a very driven, very intelligent year group among my friends, many of whom who got Russell Group places. I was lucky enough to be one of them. I got into the University of Nottingham. I don't think I'd have got into the University of Nottingham, though, without the assistance of the Sutton Trust. Now, I'm sure many of you are aware of what the Sutton Trust do, but for those who are not, they are an educational charity. They're focused on social mobility in higher education. That means they are involved in lobbying projects, for example, lobbying the government to abolish unpaid internships as they unfairly detriment those from poorer backgrounds. And they are looking to set up, they have set up a wide number of summer schools across prestigious Russell Group universities across the UK, so that students from slightly non-traditional backgrounds get the opportunity to go away to university and experience university life. I was a participant on the Law and Politics strand of the Sutton Trust Summer School in 2014. That was at the University of Nottingham. I wanted to go partly because I wanted to prove to myself that I could stay away from home and go further afield, which was something I was very keen to do. And I also wanted to make sure that my interest in law extended to the academic study of it. I'm happy to confirm that it did. Very much enjoyed the lessons, very much enjoyed the summer school side of it, and fell in love with Nottingham as a city, hence why I went there. Now, when I actually went to university at Nottingham for 4 years, so from the summer of 2016 to the summer of 2019, I was actually involved in turn as a summer school ambassador, using my experience as a participant and my desire to continue to assist in some way to help out with the participants there. It also meant I was an online e-mentor to numbers of those participants. So through a platform called Brightlinks, I would provide advice on university applications, personal statements, accommodation choices, etc. One of the most worthwhile things I did while I was at university, and for anyone who is interested in the Sutton Trust Summer Schools and their like, I can heartily recommend that you apply, that you get involved, that you look at programs like Pathways to Law. Obviously aware that in the current lockdown things are very different, and I know that the summer school this year has gone online, which I'm sure is going to be an interesting experience for everyone, but the adapting of the modern world to coronavirus continues. While I was at university, I did a number of things as well besides my work on the summer school, which I feel have benefited me going forward. I was heavily involved with the Law Society in my first 2 years there. In my second year, for instance, I became its general secretary, which now being a paralegal, I can see that the organisational skills that I developed working as its secretary have benefited me massively in my role. I can also see that the ability to assist the president in running a sponsorship and the maintaining of client relationships while I was general secretary is going to be a valuable skill for me going forward working in law with respect to managing my own client relationships, and for that I'm very grateful. I also got the opportunity to do a year abroad. Those people who know me know that I found my year abroad particularly challenging at the best of times. I found that there was a significant difference in the amount of pastoral care that was offered in the French system as opposed to the English system. But while I wouldn't necessarily go back and live in France, I'm very grateful to have my French language skill, and it has surprised a couple of my colleagues when I've been able to offer that particular skill in respect of French clients, which is always nice to see. So yeah, I work as a paralegal in the commercial and private client litigation team of my firm in their head office in Taunton. I'm very lucky to have found this opportunity, to be honest with you, because what I've realised in doing my role is that there is a substantial amount of the private client side of this, which means we are involved with agricultural and rural clients. As I said, it's this part of the world, it's Somerset, it's something that comes very naturally to my firm, it's something that's part of its heritage. But it means that while litigation is a very broad department to be in as a start and gets a variety of experience across civil litigation, agriculture adds another element of unpredictability and difference and sometimes challenge, which is very interesting to adapt to. I'm very grateful as well that because of the fact that we are so well established as a firm in the West Country, my team also involves the criminal and regulatory side of the business. Now, criminal is something I very much enjoyed when I was at university, the study of, and it's also meant that being involved with that team as part of my work on a daily basis has meant that I've got significant exposure to some rural crime issues and to some general regulatory work as well, which has been incredibly interesting and not what I expected I'd be doing when I got involved with a civil litigation team like this. It's somewhere where I feel I can grow, it's somewhere where I feel very lucky to have the opportunity to develop, and it's somewhere hopefully that because of this broad depth of variety that comes with my work, hopefully going forward it's something I can continue to be involved with in future. Now, Paige has asked me, and I'm sorry, I'm going to look at my paper when I see this. She's asked me to answer one particular question in respect of this advice. And the question is, what do you wish someone had told you when you started your legal journey? I've had to think about this and how best to frame this. And I think the advice that I would give is that it's more than okay if you graduate without a training contract in place. Now, I appreciate some people watching this won't be at the point where they're necessarily in the process of applying for vacation schemes or training contracts with commercial law firms. Some of you who are looking at this will look at that and go, that's possibly a slightly strange piece of advice, but from my experience, I wish I'd had that piece of advice sooner. I'm very conscious of the fact that when I was applying for vacation schemes and training contracts in my third year while I was abroad in France, I was very proud of what I had done, and I still am proud of what I had done at that point to this stage. I'd had a fair amount of society experience. I'd had a couple of mini pupilages at that point, which I'd been able to earn, and I was able to reflect on the experiences I got from them and why I didn't necessarily want to go down that path and talk about those in my interviews. I had my language capabilities to set me apart as something slightly different, but it got to the point where I was at a training contract assessment centre following one of my vacation schemes, and I became very conscious that across the schemes that particular firm had to offer in 2018, I was one of only 2 students who was still actually studying at that point and was yet to graduate. The training contracts in that year went to two candidates who were incredibly experienced, who had already graduated with their degrees, had done the GDL and the LPC in one case, the LPC on its own in another, who had experience of working in commercial law as paralegals and could therefore relate to that in their interviews. And rather than feel disappointed that I wasn't successful that year, I looked at those particular students, that's the wrong word for them, those particular candidates alongside me, and thought, that's what I need to aim for. I was proud of what I had done by that point, but there was realistically so much more I could do and should do to develop my own experience and to make myself a better candidate for people. I was very candid with my current firm about that in my interview. I wanted, once I graduated, to get the experience under my belt, to be able to reflect on that and actually grow as part of something, which is why I'm really pleased to be involved with litigation. There's so much variety to get involved with. It means I'm very flexible in that respect. But there was a lot of pressure when I was at university. There's so much in the way of communication that comes to you in respect of there's this training contract here, or what about this firm over here? And I wish at times that people had taken a step back and talked to us about what people did after they graduated, and the amount of people who actually had those training contracts, the amount of people who hadn't yet graduated and was able to secure it. And by saying that, I don't want to do a disservice to friends and peers of mine who have graduated with those opportunities. In contrast, I salute you, because at that point you had so much, and clearly you were a perfect fit for a particular firm and you'd really worked hard for it. And so there's no resentment on my part for that. But it was looking at my own experiences and thinking, I'm proud of what I have done, but I can do so much more. And I think I'd have appreciated hearing a little bit more in the realistic side of things from my university in respect of advice like that, and saying, look, okay, it's okay to go out and get that bit more experience because you won't necessarily have it compared to others. It's harder when you come from a non-traditional background to get that experience because you don't necessarily have connections that you can rely on, because you start at a disadvantage in that respect. And so it is perfectly okay to look at that and go, at university and during university, I may not be the finished product. And then you have to ask yourself, what do I need to get in order to be that finished product and to make that climb? And so that's probably the bit of advice I would say, is that if you're coming from a non-traditional background in respect to this, there will be times where you will be compared against people and the comparison will not weigh in your favour, whether that comes as a result of the experience that they have compared to you, the opportunities that they were able to access, whether that comes as the understanding that they have because of connections or what have you. Sometimes it will be the case that you can't compare. And that's the important side of things, to get involved with certain schemes like the Sutton Trust. That's the importance of making the most of every opportunity you can get, of thinking outside the box in the ways to develop your skills and to show who you are. Make yourself stand out a little bit as being unique as opposed to the opportunities that those from traditional backgrounds will have, and people will pay attention to you. People will look at you and not necessarily compare you as unfavorably, but even if they do, it's perfectly okay to be in that situation. You just have to look at your own skill set and identify where you can build. So that's probably the advice I would give, is that it is more than okay to graduate without something necessarily in place. The big headlines that you will get throughout university about training contracts, etc., don't necessarily think to yourself that that is the be-all and end-all and that in some way you have failed without that. Because the failing at that point is to give up. And the failing is to not consider yourself and look at it and go, right, okay, what do I need to do? What can I do? What should I be doing? And so in that situation, it is more than okay to graduate without a training contract in place. It's also more than okay to take those moments and look at yourself and go, I need a little bit more time to build this. Because if you take that time to invest in yourself a little bit more, then you will hit the ground running in the legal profession. People will admire you for your tenacity, for your perseverance, and your commitment, which are superb skills to have when the going gets tough in your job, And when you're dealing with particularly difficult issues, particularly difficult deadlines, any particularly difficult clients, it's massive skills to have, and they will serve in your credit in the long run. Hopefully when Paige posts this, she will include a link to my LinkedIn profile alongside the video. I am more than happy to take connections from people and discuss anything further if you have any questions. I'm conscious that building a network is sometimes quite difficult when you come from a non-traditional background, and so anything I can do in respect of that, any guidance I can offer in respect to my experiences. I don't pretend to know everything. God knows I don't. But I'm more than happy to connect with people. Feel free to send me a request and say that you saw the video, what have you. More than happy to have a chat about things. And I wish you all the best, and take care.